Welcome to the Your Next Move podcast with Kimberly Brown. Today, we have a special friend of mine, Christa Clarke. You may remember her if you were on my book tour in summer 2021. She did a book tour stop with her brand, Cubicles to Cocktails. But as you know, we have to get in and I need to read your receipts because people need to know who you are. So Christa Clarke is the co-founder and CEO of SpeakHaus, a training and leadership development company dedicated to transforming businesses and thought leaders into confident, bold speakers. This is the first public speaking industry to provide mobile in-person group coaching that goes directly into the homes of leaders jumpstarting speaking transformation in one workshop. One, y'all. That is so special. She is also an internationally certified project management professional with more than 8 years of experience. She has led multi-million-dollar initiatives and programs across clinical operations, tech innovation, and curriculum development. As the founder of Cubicles to Cocktails, which is how I met you, a community of leadership development platform for women of color, she's built a community of more than 2,300 Black and Latinx women in corporate. Christa is known for her infectious laughter. Yes, indeed. A passion for cultivating community and celebrating the growth of Black and brown women in business. She's a born-again Texan, yes, and cocktail connoisseur living in Houston with her husband and 2 fur babies, Kobe and Coco, who are so cute. Which was the one that runs away?
Kobe.
Yes. Yes, I'm like, I remember watching that on social. And I feel like it's appropriate to ask, like, what is your favorite cocktail?
My favorite cocktail, as of late, has been the French 75.
I don't even know what that is.
It's historically it's made with cognac.
Okay.
Simply lemon, and then you splash it with champagne prosecco. You can also get it with gin. That's pretty much like the more modern way that most people are more familiar with.
So first of all, that's a real cocktail.
Yeah.
I'm more of like a simply lemonade and Bacardi coconut person.
Listen, that sounds yummy still.
Yes, but that feels real grown up. Like, I feel like I need to do just a little bit better. I love that. So Christa and I met, I had to ask her before we started today. So we met at the My Taught You retreat. So Myleik Teal hosted a retreat and we met at the second one in 2019. And that's how we've kind of stayed connected over time, which I love. I was like, you've just been in my life. I didn't necessarily remember when you got here, but she's been here. So I want to get into talking about project management. I feel like project management is one of those careers where people are like, well, what is project management? Right. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. So with project management, it is the formal discipline of taking a budget and a timeline and connecting that to business objectives, business goals. And so it's a ancient industry, and it's just really all about in a business, when you want to create business transformation, if you are rolling out and expanding systems, you're going to need to create a process to move that forward, and then also to help people adopt the change. So sometimes people try to, take change management and project management and make those two different things. But a project is a failed project if the users, if the people who are going to actually be impacted by that project are refusing to accept that change. So
got it. Okay. And project management essentially goes across all industries.
So like my background in project management actually started in tech innovation. Okay. So I actually interned for a startup company called Medical Informatics Corp. Really amazing company. And they're doing great things even now. And nice. I was doing data analysis for them. But what I was in charge of was developing a benchmarking system for them to use for their actual platform to do clinical decision support and analysis. And so that's kind of like when I was like, how do I know the end goal is to get this integrated into the system. I know the end goal is to tell hospital decision makers how we can improve their systems and improve their what we call alarm fatigue in the industry. So too many alarms are going off, you start to ignore it, and it causes adverse events, right? Yes. Adverse clinical events. And so once again, had a budget, had a timeline, did that, but I really got my formal start in the Texas Medical Center, interning there for another organization, and started navigating. So from the Texas Medical Center, it was clinical workflows, operations for another organization, it was curriculum development for the medical school. Another organization, the expansion of a telephone triage line. So it definitely varies from telecommunications to innovation to just workflows to curriculum, everything.
Just about everything.
Events too.
So in layman's terms, the way you could correct me if I'm wrong. So in layman terms, I feel like an organization has an end goal, whatever that end goal is. And the project managers come in and it's like end-to-end management to get to that end goal, whether it's resources, financial, people, timelines, like end-to-end to make sure that the company does whatever it is and make sure that you're mobilizing all of the people doing all of the things to get to that outcome.
Yeah, exactly. So every project always starts off with like a project charter. So a project charter, like the whoever's your decision makers, the strategy setters in the company, they're like, this is where we're going 5 to 10 years from now. You know, or maybe this is where we need to go by the end of this year if it's a shorter, like more simple, fast project. And so within that project charter, it's all about setting that what is the company's strategy, what is the company's goals, what is the timeline, what is the what is the timeline, and then like from that kind of like what's the higher level scope of work, right? And so project management, what I like about it is very iterative too. So like you start with that project charter and you kind of have like these end goals, these end deliverables in mind. But then as a project manager, what I start to do, I start to like corral the stakeholders. I start to figure out, well, what's in it for this stakeholder? What stakeholders are actually going to be the ones that are difficult, that's not going to want the project to happen?
That's just as important.
Yeah. And so you start to talk to all the stakeholders, and you also prioritize these stakeholders. Like, okay, maybe you may have an attitude about this project, but really your opinion doesn't matter because you have no influence in this world, right? So I'm like, that's just the harsh reality of it. And so from those stakeholders, you also work with your project team to start to build out like your I'm like, do you want me to get, how jargony do you want me to get?
I think it's important. So we have people of all industries listening to this podcast. So I think it's important. I think also you're going to hear me reflect back. So in layman's terms, this means, just in case someone's not in project management and doesn't understand.
So where you go, like you start, like when you develop your scope of work, you start to also, in the deliverables, you start to do your work breakdown structure. And so what a work breakdown structure is, it's like an outline. So like if you're like, you wrote your book, you know, you have 1, then you have A, then you have I, and then the 2 I's, you know, start to get to Roman numerals. So a work breakdown structure is similar to that, where that's how you start to plan out, like what team members do you need to pull in? What resources do you really need? What kind of like budget items belong to each of these line items? And that's, you know, you start to build out and estimate your budget, and then it's iterative again. So eventually you get to the point where you're ready for project kickoff, and that's where, to me, the fun really begins.
I love it. So you can tell how passionate you are about this work. And also I love seeing people operate in their zone of genius. Like I don't even want you in zone of excellence. I want you in your zone of genius. So I love hearing like how excited you are about it. So my follow-up question is, how has this helped you in entrepreneurship?
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Like immensely. It has helped immensely. So as far as like entrepreneurship, it has helped me to set my own business goals, to understand like the key performance indicators, your KPIs, to hire team members, to be really strategic and clear. So sometimes I have to tell myself, and like, you know, I have a parking lot for like ideas, and it's just like, nope, this is not the goal for this quarter. This is not the goal for this year. No matter how exciting it is, this is on ice right now. You know, this is on ice until I have the capacity, until I have the budget, until I have the resources. So it really helps for you not to get ahead of yourself, and stay really streamlined with limited resources, limited team, lean teams, if you will. The other thing that I like about it too is that it has helped me to be able to, plus in addition to my engineering background and that training, it's been able to help me to just figure it out. You know, I'm very scrappy and resilient when it comes to what I don't know, because at the end of the day, we're both engineering and project management. Engineering is like, well, how do I innovate upon these processes? You know, whereas project management is like, well, what's the best path to go down? And so I find myself just from my corporate training, taking what I've learned in corporate and saying, hey, this framework that we typically may use for education, or we typically may use when we're training nurses to become case managers for chronic disease patients. This is an interesting way to also apply this to my business in an innovative way, but still using project management as the scaffold. So that's how I believe it has helped tremendously. And, of course, standard operating procedures.
I love it. So first of all, like SOPs.
SOPs.
If you're an entrepreneur, that's, I think, one of my struggles. And I think we had another guest, Tanya Rapley, and I asked her the question of what do you feel is the biggest problem that millennials have when it comes to money? And she said the biggest issue that millennials have is trying to do everything. And just in general, it's like, I want to decrease my debt. I want to raise my credit score. I want to buy a house. I want to do I want to invest. And it's all of these things at the same time. And in business, we can see the same thing. Is we are trying to do all of the things. I want to start a program. I want to get a co-founder. I want to collaborate here. I want to do this. I want to do that. And everything, in my opinion, ends up being mediocre. Because you can't do all things at the same time. But when you have a background in project management, when you're thinking about standard operating procedures, when you're thinking about really having a strategic plan, project management can really come in and help you make educated decisions versus just, flying by the seat of your pants and just hoping it all works out, which I know lots of people do, including myself sometimes.
So I'm guilty about it. So
as a project manager, So what made you decide that project management was a career you wanted to embark upon?
Okay, yeah. So for me, I went to graduate school, and at the time when I went to graduate school, I was trying to really propel my career in healthcare, and I knew I didn't want to, or I didn't feel a lot of imposter syndrome. I didn't feel as if I was going to be able to break into like the engineering technology industry, in the roles that I wanted to be. And that's particularly because with biomedical engineering, which was my discipline, depending on what school you go to, like I didn't realize that Rice University at that time really prepares you to go into the medical, like medical doctor or research, like PhD doctorate type of roles. So it was really difficult to break into the industry, to get into like R&D and like the true like practice. And so I went back to school for my master's in bioscience and health policy. And during that time, this program was a very practical program where I had a lot of opportunities to intern. So I tried my hand at qualitative research with mobile application development for cancer survivors. I tried my hand at project management, which I ended up loving. Tried my hand at data analysis, which was so-so for me. But what I really liked the most was the project management experience. And then also, to be truthful, I like a challenge. And so I just couldn't really imagine myself like being in a role that I don't get to try new things and I don't get to build and innovate new things. And so to me, at that age, I was like, project management is perfect. It pays well. It's a profession that cuts across all various industries. And then lastly, projects, they end. And so I get to try something new.
That is I didn't even think about it that way. Like there will be an end date and I can switch it up. There will be an end date and
I can switch it up.
Oh, I love that. I really love that. So let's transition to talk about your entrepreneurial journey, because you transitioned from your work. And just a fun fact is to pop in there. When I was building out a course, I called you.
Yeah.
And her process, I think, in all things was just so helpful. I didn't even think to break things down in the way that you did. And sometimes that granular detail can feel so overwhelming, but it also feels so good because you have an anchor that you can go into. So let's go back just a little bit more. So I met you while you were working full time, building cubicles of cocktails, and now you have SpeakHaus.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that journey from working in corporate, building your side hustle, and then now doing SpeakHaus.
Yeah. So for me, my journey, oh my gosh, Kim, it starts like, I'm going to give Cliff Notes, but it starts all the way back to 2016. When I first entered the workforce, I wanted to climb the ladder. Like, many of us ambitious women, Black people, we want to get to the very top. So I came out ready to work hard. And I ended up in a very toxic workplace, extremely toxic, constantly like just, overworking myself to keep up with what was always being put on my plate, but also at the same time dealing with colleagues that would backstab one another, backstab me, botch promotions just due to people not willing to advocate for your hard work. And when you try to advocate for yourself, you get called things like entitled, and like I remember
the best word people be calling millennials. They love
right.
to say
they love
title.
to say that.
Yeah.
When it's really just you work very hard and you work and you show your impact. And sometimes, unfortunately, especially when you're a Black woman, people still dismiss it and they try to push you in your place. And so I remember telling my my boss once I was promoted and I was very disappointed with the pay raise. I told her, I was like, I'm happy to finally, receive this promotion, especially because I've been doing this work for more than half a year now with no title recognition or pay increase. But I have to be quite truthful. I'm disappointed to see this pay increase. Yeah. And her response was, and I'm still processing it. I didn't realize my therapist said it's like, that's trauma. Her response to me was, well, you don't have to take the role. You could turn it down and say no. Oh. And it was a Black woman, looked like me, caramel skin, curly hair, just somebody who I really saw myself becoming in the future before I started to realize how that department really operated. And so that really hurt, And so for me, from that job, I started to really that's when I first started experiencing my first panic attacks. And I was so unhappy. And so I started a blog, and that's a lot of us do that, right? We go and we start a blog. We're like, we just want to tell our story. We want to figure it out. Oh my gosh. And so I started a blog. That blog led to Cubicles to Cocktails. Cubicles to Cocktails led to us meeting at the My Toshi retreat. Yes. It led me to meet Jerisha Hawk, which is one of our colleagues and good friends, Yeah. And so having that conversation at the retreat with Jerisha started making me think about Cubicles to Cocktails and building my business in a very different light. Yeah. And just throughout that process that I'm growing as an entrepreneur, and I'm also healing personally from a lot of other types of incidents of workplace trauma. Yeah. I started becoming close with Shahara, which is one of my business besties, a good girlfriend.
Fellow guest of the podcast.
Yes, fellow guest of the podcast. My sister Joy introduced us. And so when Shahara moved to Houston, we became really close. And prior to the pandemic, the transitions that happened for me was one, had to take medical leave for debilitating anxiety because my past workplace, I started having a lot of triggers that reminded me of the old workplace.
Got it.
Yeah. And so it was really bad, waking up depressed. I forced myself into the office one day crying. And I couldn't pull it together. I went in at 8, had to leave at 10:30, the whole time crying along the way. So I took leave and I was talking to Shahara and before the pandemic, she introduced to me this concept, Champagne Show and Tell. And I was one of the first participants in Champagne Show and Tell. And I just really had a very good transformation from my experience with public speaking, feeling more confident speaking on live television and winning pitch competitions and just showing up. And so I'm on leave, and I decided from her encouraging me, my husband encouraging me, my family, my therapist encouraging me to quit my job once I returned, which was really scary. For me. And I quit to focus on Cubicles to Cocktails full time. And one day I was just like, Shahara, what are you doing right now with Champagne Show and Tell?
I know those conversations.
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing, girlfriend? I quit my job to
test the temperature right quick. This might could be something.
I quit my job to focus on Cubicles to Cocktails. I'm making all these bold moves. This is your bold move. And I was just like, so when are you going to bring this back? Because we can't use the pandemic as an excuse anymore. People are vaccinated and meeting, girlfriend.
Yes, indeed.
And so she said to me, well, I just don't have the capacity. And so I replied back to that, well, I know you're going to regret it deeply if somebody else comes up with this idea and they execute it and they really do the thing. You're going to regret it. And I'm going to hate to see you regret it. So let me know when you're ready and I'll come in as your COO, And she was like, I'm ready now. Let's go. Oh my gosh. So that's how SpeakHaus came into existence, was just, I'm like, it's a long story and I try to keep it as short as I could, but it really started back from 2016 with just workplace trauma and just being like, I need to build community. I need to find my community. And we're ambitious women, but we deal with a lot of trauma from the workplace. And so let's come together and support each other, share resources with one another, and also heal together and validate and affirm one another. And so that led me just on this amazing journey that is SpeakHaus today, and is co-foundership, sisterhood, business partners, everything today. Yeah.
I think it just shows what can come out of situations like that. I know we have an episode with Tara Patton about corporate PTSD. And I think we don't talk about it. I think some people may be like, PTSD, that sounds dramatic.
No.
But no, actually,
not.
PTSD doesn't just have to be from being a veteran and going to war. You can have PTSD from so many different situations in your life. And I think many of us who've had toxic work environments, bad encounters with whatever, whoever, can react in that way. I know myself, I've had some tough times in corporate America that still kind of shake up things that I do today. So I completely understand. I can empathize with that. But I'm very happy that you and Shahar got together. So my question for you is, how did it go from, doing Cubicles to Cocktails by yourself to now having a co-founder for a brand new company? How does that work, and how's the collaboration and bringing that together?
Yeah. So with moving over from Cubicles to Cocktails to focusing exclusively on SpeakHaus, I want to start off by saying, I know I've been looking for a co-founder for more than 2 years, to be truthful. I just I could never find anybody, because either, somebody is working on their own business and they're not willing to put aside their ego, or they're just afraid to walk away from hard work to work on somebody else's ideas. Sometimes you have the opinion of, you want to just be your own boss. You don't want a partner. And for me, I was just like, no, this solo founder stuff is for the birds. Honestly, it really is.
It doesn't have to be like this.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like this. And so I've been keeping my eyes out anyway. Now, as far as once we had that conversation, I remember it was September 7th when we had that conversation. We signed a little piece of notebook paper to get us started.
Oh my goodness. This is our joint venture agreement.
Right. It's something happened in the universe today, and we're just really excited, and we're committed to this journey and process together. Sign here.
Do you watch Grey's Anatomy?
Yes. With the wedding vows.
Yes,
right?
that's very much Meredith and Derek when they signed and put it on the wall. I had to make that Grey's reference. I love it.
Yeah. And so from there, we immediately because we've both been in entrepreneurship for so long, we immediately reached out to my current business advisor, who is now both of our business advisors and mentor. And we told her, we're like, hey, we have this great idea. We want to come together. What should we do? And so she said 3 things. 1, revise your business plan. Take what's best from both of your companies, what's in alignment, put those together. So we did that. 2, talk to our attorney ASAP.
Yep, a joint venture agreement.
Get your so we're a LLC, but we're formed as a holdings company.
Okay.
So talking to the lawyer and just the different revenue streams that we have coming in, he really helped us to make sure we were going to set ourselves up to be best protected, not only with one another in case things don't work out, because sometimes you may have to amicably leave, you know, and then also just protection from the risk profiles. And then the third thing was just move and just do it. Don't overthink it. Just do it. Get started now. Get to work. And so in order to figure out kind of our working flow, we hosted a series of virtual workshops, communication workshops. And then we also were awarded the Comcast Rise grant.
Oh, come on,
and so that put us into a coaching program called Eureka, which is an awesome resource.
I'm in Eureka.
Are you in Eureka? It's so affordable. And it's good resources.
Okay.
So we just started going through their go-to-market strategy. And so to get us up and running really quickly with the strategy and our messaging. And then on the back end, being the project manager that I am, I'm like, let's read this book and use this framework. And this is how this framework plugs into this. And this is our timeline to accomplish it all. And we also use internally the EOS. I think it's called Entrepreneurial Operating System Philosophy.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so we set that up. That's how we actually came up with our titles, Chief Visionary Officer, because we're you're just the visionary. I'm just the integrator. But, of course, to the external world, they're like, well, who's the boss? And da, da, da. And it's this stuff doesn't matter. What matters is how we're splitting up our roles. So that's how we did it, legal, getting that legal stuff in order, getting your CPA in order, just starting to figure out, well, how do our roles work? So I do a lot more of the marketing and team management operations. She's more sales, partnerships. And of course, the coach. That's her expertise, is the public speaking aspect.
Oh my gosh, I love that way. We need to talk about Eureka. We have to talk about it because it's phenomenal.
I tell everybody about Eureka.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So my final question for you is like, what's next?
What's next?
What's next?
Oh, girl. So with SpeakHaus, what's next? We're ready to just, our end goal is to take this global.
All right.
We really strongly just believe that, your voice should never be one of the barriers you encounter along your path to success.
Ooh.
And so for us, we're, working on certification process to expand nationally with other speaking coaches so that we could continue to host the SpeakHaus Social, which is our mobile group coaching program, and launching with my background and taking Shahar's her intellect and just launching curriculum and really focusing on our thought leadership of our organization, which gets me really excited. And so so we're just ready to hit the road and just blow this bad boy pretty much.
Love it. Oh my gosh. I love that. Whenever my guests talk about their zone of genius, I just love the smile. That's how you know that you are truly operating in what you're supposed to be in. We had another guest who talked about purpose, and I feel like there's a whole line. Listen to the episode about purpose if you want to learn about that. But I think one of the markers of that is you can't help but spill the joy over, because you're just so excited about it. So that makes me happy to see that.
It's just so much alignment. Every day, every week, Shahar and I oh my gosh, the alignment, I'm this subject matter expert, and it never registered until now that the subject matter experts that you used to work with were medical doctors, but you were developing their curriculum for them. Yeah. And now you get to develop my curriculum for my public speaking and communication, and it's amazing to have alignment and to have compatibility with somebody who you already love from the start. So
I love that. So we know what's next. Tell the people where to find you.
So I am actually more active on LinkedIn now.
Yes.
So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Christa Clarke. I'm also on Instagram, Hey Christa Clarke. And you can find SpeakHaus everywhere, SpeakHaus, and that's HAUS.
Got it. Perfect. Well, we will link to that everywhere in the show notes. And I just want to thank you so much for being here with us. Anytime. Yes, you can hug. I appreciate it.
I'm a hugger.
Yes. Y'all, thank you for tuning in, and may your next move be your very best move. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much for tuning in this week to the Your Next Move podcast. Don't forget to share this episode with a colleague or friend so we can all level up together. If you enjoyed today's episode, please write a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And lastly, if you're looking to join a community of thriving professionals, I invite you to join the Next Move Best Move community, my private community of professionals that includes the Manifest Yourself signature leadership development courses, monthly lunch and learns, and more. For more information, please go to KimberlyBeOnline.com/community. Until next week, remember to make your next move your very best move.